Well, Bill Simmons is here with us from the 30 for 30 documentary series on ESPN. Bill, what was this project like working for you and all the different subject matter that you got to work with on this series?
I mean, it was a dream come true. We spent a year just putting it together and coming up with a list of people we wanted to work with and topics we thought were going to work and kind of sticking to a certain vision. And once it started to hit with our audience, it was great because, I don't know if people fully trusted ESPN with creative documentaries like that. And it really took about until halfway through the series. I think for me, the two Escobars, which was a 2-hour documentary that was in subtitles, and people watched it, and it did a good rating, and it trended on Twitter, and it got great reviews, and it just blew people away. That was so exciting for me because I just don't know if people would have trusted ESPN like that a few years before.
Yeah. Bill, how did it all come about? I mean, where was the the first idea and how did it all kick off?
The idea, it actually started with me and a guy named Connor Shell. I had sent a memo about how I thought we needed to do this documentary series to commemorate our 30th anniversary and basically do 30 years and not rank them, just do 30 really good stories. And as part of the Rinko, I wanted to get 5 people who were Hollywood, and we did the rest. And Connor had the idea that we could get 30 filmmakers to do. And, he basically did. It was basically an independent film model. We figured out how we thought it could work economically and creatively. And then, we brought in a whole bunch of other people like John Lynch, John Dahl, Keith Klingscales, and the whole team just started working on it. And, it was one of those things where once we got the first 5 or 6 directors, were the toughest ones. Once we got them, it was a little bit like dominoes. I think people realized, this is real. I want in on this. And, it kind of took off from there. It was great.
On the Emmys, which we're an awards website, you're entering into the nonfiction series category, which means that out of all of the ones that are eligible for this season, you pick just one for the Emmy panel to look at sort of as an episode, even though in your mind all of them are separate. And from my understanding, you're entering Once Brothers, which was really, really riveting. Tell us about that one in particular.
Once Brothers was done with the guys at NBA Entertainment. And it was about Vlade Divac, who grew up as a Serbian. And back then it was Yugoslavia. Basically, when they had a basketball team before the big civil war, the Serbians and the Croatians played together. And some of his best friends were Croatians. Then the war happened, and, it obviously affected their friendships. His best friend was a guy named Drazen Petrovic, who was a guy who was Croatian, who played for the New Jersey Nets. Vlade played for the Lakers. And once the war really kicked in, it just destroyed their friendship. They'd be playing in NBA games and they wouldn't really be talking to each other. And what happened was Drazen died in a car accident in 1993. And Vlade has just been carrying this around him for years. So finally he decided to go back to Yugoslavia. I'm Croatian Serbia now. And kind of revisit his steps and see Drazen's family and the whole thing. And he narrated it, which I thought was kind of a stroke of genius because he had a great voice, like very husky. Sounds like you could kind of feel the cigarettes in his voice. He's saying, and just really pushed it over the top. And, I thought it was really affecting and, it kind of captures the series because it's not something maybe you'd typically see a sports documentary about, but, I think people learn from it. It was emotional. It made you feel differently about somebody that you didn't know that much about. And, it kind of epitomized the series for us.
Yeah, definitely. And Bill, most of the show seems to really tug on the heartstrings and give you a new perspective about people that you might have already had an opinion about. And I was wondering if you've had much reaction from the particular sports people or people involved with them just in your day-to-day life. And what's been the feedback?
Sorry, you're cutting out a little bit. You know, the most interesting one to me, well, there were two actually. The two Escobars. Just, I don't think people truly knew that story, and it was kind of, you know, pretty an amazing story. Like, Colombia loses in the World Cup, and they lose because their best player basically makes a mistake and he kicks the ball in his own net. Drug dealers back a few weeks later. And it's one of those things where I don't think people knew the story. I think they assumed Pablo Escobar killed him. They just wanted to become one of those urban legends where they, you know, you start things get twisted around, it becomes a game of telephone. And actually, like Pablo Escobar, because he had been caught and killed before that had happened, that's actually why this guy died. Pablo Escobar would have probably protected this guy. So that whole story I thought was pretty incredible. And then the Marcus Dupree story, that I was really excited about that one because that was a guy that really peaked about almost 30 years ago, and peaked in a way that wasn't even that totally. I think college football fans remembered him. Other than that, I don't think he certainly wasn't on Bo Jackson's level or anything. And to bring him back to life and he was really like the epitome of unrealized potential. And to bring him to life, and we kind of gave him a second life. Like, you know, he's on Twitter now. And I think now he gets mentioned along these people in the 80s who didn't reach their potential for one reason or another. We kind of reinvented his story, which I think is pretty cool. And it was a 2-hour story about somebody that really nobody knew that played 30 years ago, and it did one of the biggest ratings we had because people trusted the series so much at that point. So we were really happy with that.
Once you got things rolling and people knew what you were working on, how many ideas overall would you say that your team discussed or that were pitched to you? And were there any crazy ones in there or ones that almost made the cut? Or tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. This is where one of the things we spent probably the first 9 months doing is kind of sketching out what we thought the best ideas were. And you'd go to meet these different filmmakers, and you'd have an idea in your head like, oh, we'll talk to this guy about this. And then you'd have lunch with them, and they'd already have something in their head that they were really passionate about. And for us, we learned pretty quickly, like, you want a film passionate about. You don't want to kind of say, do this, and shoehorn them into an idea that maybe they're not 100% on. Is that with the filmmakers we were meeting with, everybody had one idea that they were really about, and maybe that idea wouldn't have worked necessarily for our series, but some of them did, and some of them, that's how we ended up doing things. I think there was only a couple times when we pitched a director an idea. I think the craziest idea that we had that ended up not happening was actually my idea. I wanted to do a documentary about Rocky Balboa and how he ended the Cold War, which would have been totally not a mockumentary, but I wanted to play it straight and interview all the people who were in the movie like this had actually happened and it was a real thing. And I think I was, out of the people circle, I think I was the only one who was totally with that idea. But we had, the one that shocked me was I thought for sure we were going to do one about Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry, who were these two guys on the Mets who were these unrealized potential guys who both had drug problems, and they kind of symbolized the 80s to some degree. And that one fell through because they both wanted to get paid. So I never would have imagined that we would have done a 30 documentary series about this era without including those guys, but somehow we did.
Well, Bill, I want to ask you another question. You're all over ESPN in various forms. I heard you on yesterday on the radio with Colin. I've seen you. Last year I saw you, seemed like you were having a ball co-hosting, pardon the interruption, 1 week last year. What's your favorite, other than this documentary series, what's your favorite thing to do for ESPN?
I mean, my favorite thing's writing my column, just because, you know, that's kind of what got me here. And I still like writing, and I still have fun trying to come up with angles and trying to get them done. But I thought the thing that surprised me the most was how much fun it was to host Pardon the Interruption, because guys that produce it are really super duper smart, and they make it so that I don't know how to do TV, you know, as you can see right now in this interview. But it's something where you just kind of go in and it's almost like you're a pilot and they just throw you into the pilot seat and you got to trust the crew and they keep telling you it's going to be all right and they prepare you and then you go out and it's fun. And their biggest interest is just that you stay yourself and you're having a good time and you don't feel like you're overwhelmed or any of that stuff. And I've only done 7 of them, and I'm sure if I did by the 77th one, I'll actually be competent at it. But the fact that I could do 7 without totally embarrassing myself, I thought, it's just because of those guys, because they were great.
Well, that show in particular is almost like Jeopardy for a host, I'm sure, because you're getting thrown subject after subject after subject on all across the sports world, even across pop culture world, and you have to be a little bit knowledgeable in every single one of them.
Yeah, it scares me because it's not fun to write. I don't think that's a newsflash. It's not fun to sit in front of an empty Microsoft Word doc and write it and craft it. It's actually unfun. That's not a word. Television, doing a show like that, when you just get to be around smart people, and then you go on and you do it in a half hour and the day's over, like, you can get pretty seduced by that pretty quickly. Kornheiser about that, you know, he used to consider himself a writer, and now he likes doing TV and radio. It's easier, it's more fun, you get to be around people all the time. That's how these guys get pulled in.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time today. We really wish you all the best for the upcoming Emmys and your future projects, and thanks again.
Thank you, guys. I hope we have good luck with the Emmys.